You ever get that feeling when you're watching a movie, like there's some kind of hidden logic at play? Almost an invisible set of rules running in the background, telling you not just what to see, but how to see it? Well, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a really wild theory that claims to expose Hollywood's secret operating system. I mean, what if movies as totally different as Psycho, The Sound of Music, and yeah, even an old Coca-Cola commercial were all built using the same fundamental code? That's the big question we're diving into, and trust me, the answer might just change how you watch movies forever. So to really get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. First, we'll define this operating system. Then we'll look at the engine that makes it run, find its one critical glitch, examine its go-to weapon, and finally, we'll talk about its legacy. Think of it as our decoder ring for seeing the unseen. All right, let's get right into it. What exactly is this system? It's time to define the core concept. Okay, so the name of the theory is Phantomoperand. It sounds complicated, I know, but just think of it in 2 parts. Phantom, because it's invisible, like a ghost in the machine, and operand, because it operates on us, the viewers. Essentially, it's this idea that cinema works like an engine. It takes all this raw material, human bodies, our desires, even politics, and it processes all of it into this perfectly smooth, easy-to-consume product. It organizes our attention so well that its logic doesn't feel like a choice. It just feels like reality. So how does it pull this off? Well, the whole system runs on a principle called the dictatorship of aestheticism. And this is where the real magic and maybe the manipulation happens. It just overwhelms you with beauty, with perfect polish, with pure sensory pleasure. It makes its version of the world so attractive that you just don't question it. Any tricky ethical problems or difficult ideas get smoothed right over with a beautiful surface. So how does this engine actually work? What are its moving parts? Turns out it's powered by a 3-step mechanism that is just incredibly good at grabbing and directing our attention. Let's break it down. So the whole process kicks off with exhibitionism. That's just strategically putting a body or an idea on display for us to look at. This, of course, triggers voyeurism, our natural pleasure in looking. The film then takes that and refines it into a more focused, almost investigative kind of gaze. And that leads to the final and most provocative step, pimping. Now, it's a loaded word, and the theory uses it on purpose. It describes the final conversion of that whole spectacle, the body, the emotion, even a political movement, into a commodity. Something packaged and ready for us to buy. A director like Alfred Hitchcock was an absolute master of showing us how this system works. In Psycho, he doesn't just let you be a passive observer peeking in. No, he makes the act of looking a central, uncomfortable part of the plot. He basically forces you to admit that you're part of the system too. And this system is incredibly flexible. Take a historical epic like Spartacus. Here, that pimping mechanism takes something incredibly serious, like a slave revolt, and repackages it as this beautiful premium spectacle. It literally turns historical suffering into this grand, consumable pageantry. But Hitchcock's Vertigo might be the ultimate case study. The entire plot is this process of conversion. The movie itself becomes, as the source material calls it, an apparatus that sells the body as evidence. And it's not evidence of a crime. It's evidence that a fantasy can be manufactured and made real. And just to show you how universal this logic is, check out this famous Coca-Cola ad. It's doing the exact same thing. It takes the entire complex world and, through that dictatorship of aestheticism, it boils everything down into one single, simple, purchasable feeling. It's the Phantomoperand system in its purest, most commercial form. But what happens when this perfectly smooth system breaks? Because every operating system has a bug, right? A potential glitch. And for Phantomoperand, that glitch is a really powerful concept called estrangement. Estrangement is basically any moment in a film that just shatters the illusion. It's like a glitch in the matrix. It's a deliberate disruption that yanks you out of your absorption and makes you suddenly totally aware that you are watching something that has been constructed. It pulls the curtain back and forces you to see the system at work. Now, this whole idea of estrangement exists on a spectrum. Let's look at 2 extremes. On one end, you have something like The Sound of Music, where the system is running almost perfectly. Its incredible beauty acts as a kind of insulation from the harsh history bubbling underneath. But on the total opposite end, you have Ingmar Bergman's Persona, a film that uses estrangement as its main tool, constantly reminding you, hey, you see this? This is a machine designed to produce feelings. And then there's Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, which basically weaponizes estrangement against the audience. The film's tone is just so jarring, pairing this beautiful classical music with horrific violence, that it makes you deeply uncomfortable with your own fascination. It's indicting you by revealing how much you might be enjoying the spectacle. So, if this system is an engine, what's its most important tool, its sharpest, most precise weapon? Well, it's the single most fundamental piece of film language there is: the cut. And what's fascinating is how the cut evolves over time, how its job changes. In Vertigo, it's the hinge that swings between a real person and a manufactured ideal. In Psycho, those rapid-fire cuts become a weapon, literally assembling the violence in our heads. Then in Persona, the cut is used to expose these fragile, dissolving boundaries between two people, making you question everything. And by the time you get to The Exorcist, the cut is just an engine of pure suspense, forcing you to jump between the cold world of science and the terrifying world of ritual. So the takeaway here is huge. A cut is never just a neutral transition. It is always a decision. It's the primary tool the system uses to regulate our reality. It controls what you see, what you feel, and ultimately, what the film declares to be true. Okay, so let's bring it all home. What's the ultimate legacy of this hidden operating system? Let's just do a quick recap. We have the Phantomoperand system, which turns life into sellable images using the power of beauty. It runs on that three-part engine: exhibitionism, voyeurism, and pimping. Its great weakness, or maybe its greatest strength depending on the movie, is estrangement, and its primary weapon of control is the cut. And this is why this whole thing really matters. This isn't just some abstract film theory. The idea of Phantomoperand reveals how the language of movies actually trains our attention. It kind of optimizes us for consumption, teaching us to prefer a streamlined, beautifully packaged version of reality over the messy, complicated truth. So I'll leave you with this question. Now that you can see the code running in the background, the engine, the glitches, the tools, how is that going to change the way you watch? Not just movies, but the whole world of images that's all around us.